Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Chilson. I am Director of Communications at CUB, and welcome to CUB's Giving Tuesday Facebook Live. We've got a big treat for you today. We have Sarah Moskowitz, our Executive Director, on to talk about CUB, and we also have Karen Tolentino, who has done great work in the outreach department. We're going to talk with them today about CUB's good work, but the first message I want to get to you all today is just to thank you for supporting CUB. Giving Tuesday is a national day of supporting nonprofits. So if you can give a gift to CUB today, you will join for 2026. You will also enter a giveaway to win an iPad, and you'll support CUB's work, CUB's mission of working for lower utility bills, consumer protections, and cleaner energy. Elizabeth is working behind the scenes today. Elizabeth, thank you for all your work at CUB. I know that Elizabeth is going to put a donation page in the chat. You can give a donation there, or you can go to citizensutilityboard.org, and there are plenty of places there to give a small donation. But let's start by just talking about what CUB has achieved so far this year. I'm going to go very quickly, and then I have some questions for Sarah and Karen. So first of all, the big departments at CUB, the legal department, the consumer advocacy department, and the outreach department, and of course, policy. We've done a lot. It's been a very busy year. Our two-person legal team, Eric and Laura, have helped reduce rate hikes by more than $200 million this year, about $150 million for the NICOR gas rate hike and about $56 million for the Ameren gas rate hike. Of course, they still got some rate hikes. We never like to see that, but it is truly inspiring to see how hard Eric and Laura work on these cases, hours and hours and hours. And they helped worked with other consumer advocates to cut those rate hikes by about $200 million. In the consumer advocacy department, CUB's department, Ani, Danielle, and Sandra, they've handled more than 1,200 consumer inquiries this year. Those are complaints or questions about utility service that people call our 1-800 number for. And they have actually saved individual utility customers this year a total of about $39,000. And that's just so far in 2025. There's still another month left to go. I'm sure they'll add to that total. And the outreach department, which Karen is part of, along with Grace, Yvonne, Matt, and Sophia, and Zoe, they have staffed more than 200 free events in 2025, giving customers money-saving tips on energy efficiency, solar power, reducing TV costs, avoiding robocall scams, and also how to spot electric and gas ripoffs on utility bills. That is a big one because this team this year worked with the consumer advocacy department to actually give a consumer, secure for a consumer, $1,000 refund because they were on a horrible alternative supplier deal. And then finally, policy. Brian, Scott, and Sarah, you work on policy also. They helped secure a major victory for consumers by helping to pass the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act, the SURGA Act. This is dealing with at a time when electricity prices are skyrocketing. This reform legislation will expand energy efficiency and add more battery storage to help protect Illinoisans from future electricity price spikes. So a lot went on this year. So Sarah, I don't know if you want to give us just an overview of how you felt about what happened this year for utility customers.
Oh boy, I'm so proud to work with the team here at CUB. It's really humbling because it's just such a talented and passionate group of people, and I think we're lucky in that we get to work at a place where we can really make a difference, and we can really see that difference in the people we interact with every day. That's why I've been at CUB for so long, and you, Jim, and Karen, hopefully you'll become an old timer with us. But it's really a lot of nonprofits. There's kind of a separation between the work you're doing in the policy sphere and how those policies hit on the ground and affect everyday folks. And with us, it's like there's no separation there. A lot of times it's like we're interacting with consumers and we're turning around the same day and interacting with regulators or policymakers. And I think that's part of what's so fun about it, is then we can kind of respond nimbly. So yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of my time this year working on legislation. But other years I've done a lot of work in the public. Other years I've done a lot of traveling, working on national stuff. And it's really, it's really just very fun. It's fun. It's frustrating. But it's immensely rewarding, because I think we do get results, and we are actually able to see some positive impact of what we do. But it never ends, of course. When I first started doing this work, I was like, oh, cool, we'll pass a bill and we're going to solve all our problems, and then we can just go away. And that's not how it works, apparently, because new problems keep on coming. Data center related demand for electricity is changing, turning everything upside down. It's requiring a lot of our attention now, and that's not something that was even on the horizon 3 years ago that we knew of. So it's just there's a lot happening, there's a lot changing, and I think it's an honor to work in an organization that's small enough and accountable enough to its members and responsive enough that we can really be nimble and go where we're needed.
Yeah. Thank you. And Sarah, how long have you been at CUB now? Is it 25 years?
Yeah, about 25 and a half years. I started on July 7th, 2000.
Wow. I remember I showed you to your places. Sandra called me ahead of time and asked me to show you and Martin Nava to your work.
Got there all early and earnest, and who the other early earnest person there in the office was Jim Chilson. Welcomed me in.
Kieran, I'm wondering, what your observation has been this year. Now, you are the Clean Energy Outreach and Communications Coordinator, CUB Espanol. How would you summarize this year? What has it been like helping to hold events across the state of Illinois?
Yeah, for sure. So it was a busy year this year, I would say. Summer tends to always be one of the more like packed seasons. But like Sarah said, I'm super proud of the outreach team, everyone here at CUB. But I'm also really proud for like the consumers in Illinois, the people that we service. When we were hit with some price spikes, electric increases, they took action. They were really interested in all the information that we had to offer, especially at events. They were ready to take down all our information, take our fact sheets, listen in to our workshops. So I would say I'm proud of our team, but also really proud of our consumers. But yeah, for sure, I've been seeing a lot of worries about, affordability, higher bills. But overall, we're trying to work hard to get that information out there.
Right. I love how you say that about consumers, because that's how we get some of our best information. And also, I would say for me, working in the communications department, the inspiration, because, people are out there, they care about their bills. They're on the ball about this. They want to do something. They want to do something to, get better control of their energy costs. And it's amazing. They always feel like consumers keep us on our toes, because we have to give them good information. They're thirsting for good information. There's a lot of question about, fake news and things like that these days. And it's just really helpful to be a good source of information for people. And I tell you, people challenge us to do that. So.
And it goes both ways, right? It's like we provide information to consumers in Illinois, but we're getting information back from consumers. And like I said, we can actually respond to what people are alerting us to. And I think something that makes it so fun to work at CUB, and I think makes us an effective organization, is that we are responsive. You call CUB, you reach a person, or we pride ourselves on being reachable and calling people back. And just it's not like when you contact us, your inquiry goes into some black hole somewhere. I mean, that's like first and foremost, is to be responsive to the folks we're serving.
Absolutely. And by the time people come to CUB, sometimes they've just had horrendous experiences with the utilities. They've gone through the automatic phone tree, they've gotten turned back. They haven't dealt with people who are, are very empathetic to their situation, or they don't feel like they've been dealt with empathetically, and they're coming to us at wit's end. And it is helpful to be that kind of source, that we can be a live voice talking to people. Who wouldn't want to call and hear, Jan, the first voice you hear when you call CUB? I mean, she's just a wonderful person to talk to, even when you're in a difficult situation and you're calling at wit's end to CUB. So I'm wondering, Karen, you talked about affordability. What are some of the biggest issues that you're seeing consumers are dealing with, now and heading into 2026? What would you say are the, top problems that utility customers are dealing with?
Yeah, so being at events, something that I'm for sure seeing is worries about high like winter bills, specifically as we're heading into that now. We just got a huge snowstorm. People are worrying about their winter bills. So that's definitely a big one going into 2026 and right now. But I always tell people, see if you qualify for financial assistance. We have great resources for you to be able to verify that. I always tell people that they can reach out to us and we could help determine if you qualify and then direct you to the right resource. Also, practicing energy efficiency is what I always tell people. And that's what I feel like they really appreciate in the workshops that we give here in outreach. All the tips that we give, like taking away vampire power, all of that. They always get surprised when I mention those things. So for sure, I would say high bills in general would be a big thing that consumers are worrying about going into 2026, especially since we've already seen some price spikes.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sarah, I mean, you're looking at this more. You've spent time in just about every department. You've been at the consumer advocacy department. You've led the outreach department for years. Now you're executive director at CUB. Just based on your experience, what would you say are some of the major issues heading into 2026 that utility customers are dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, I think Karen is right. I mean, and that's the bread and butter of what we do is tackling high bills. Um, we're seeing a lot of strain in the electricity markets, and so we saw the big spikes in the summer, and then who knows what's going to happen with gas prices? That's not regulated. We're paying the market rate for gas. Of course, the gas utilities can hedge a bit. They do have some gas storage, but we hear about increased efforts to export liquefied natural gas out of the country. Well, then where does that leave the rest of us for heating our homes? But then also those gas supply crunches can play out in our electric bills too. So, I have such a strong background in working directly with individuals, and I am still haunted by a lot of the conversations that I had with people when I was on the hotline at CUB. And I haven't been on the hotline. That was my first job at CUB, was answering the phones and talking to people, oftentimes in crisis. And it's rough out there. I think some folks can forget just how much people are struggling, and it's a challenge to parse out where the problem lies. And unfortunately, a lot of times the problem lies in a lot of different venues. There's issues at the local level, there's issues at the state level, but then there's issues with regional policy and federal policy. And we are a small organization, but we do what we can. Obviously, we have a big voice at the state level, especially when it comes to intervening in rate cases at the ICC. But then what can we do to tackle these things at the federal level? Well, then we have to work in coalition with our counterparts from other states and see what we can do there. And so it's just the amount of work is never finished. But I think high bills are an issue, but also navigating the options that you do have. I can't get over how many programs there are now in Illinois. When I first was working at CUB and on the hotline, and someone would call and say, you know, my energy bills, my gas, electric bills are pretty high. There were no energy efficiency programs. There was no peak time rebate. There was no hourly pricing. There were no rebates for getting high efficiency appliances. There was none of that. There was nothing I could tell people to do other than try to use less. No community solar, no solar incentives, nothing like that. Now there's an overwhelming amount of options out there for folks, and it's almost too much. And so I think we're always struggling, Jim, you and I, when we're talking about kind of redesigning the CUB website, is like, how do we make all this information available to people? How do we make sure that people can get to info about the programs that benefit them? And I'm convinced that no matter how perfect we make our website, we're still going to need actual live human beings over here to help people and figure out what an individual's actual personal needs are, so that we can guide them, because there's just a lot of information coming at you. And I think, again, that's kind of where we can stand out, is that we can actually just work with the individual and find out what you actually need, and then help connect you to what's out there, as opposed to just like throwing people in the deep end and, you know, figure it out. We got all these great programs now, have fun. You know, it's just too much. We all have enough to do. And I know you all have enough to do. I have enough to do. I get heart palpitations when I open my own utility bills, you know, and this is what I do for a living. So I think it's high bills, but it's also just too much information and how to sort through all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point all around. We will still work for the perfect website. We will. I just want you to know that, boss. We will continue to work for that. And that's another thing. Karen not only works in the outreach department, she also is in charge of all our Spanish language platforms, our Facebook page, our website, and does just amazing work. I don't know how you do it, Karen, how you divide time between going across, the state, holding these events across the city and across the state, and then also providing, just good information for the Spanish language community. How do you do it, Karen?
Well, first of all, thank you. That feels really nice to hear that all my work, that you like it. But how do I do it? I think it's mostly comes down to me, really enjoying the work that I do, feeling like I do make an impact in the way, like, for example, at events, I see it physically. People getting relieved when they see all the information that's out there, resources. So I think that's a big one, actually, like enjoying what I do. So it doesn't seem much like having to really work around like dividing my time. Instead, I feel like it just comes more natural. So that's a thing that I also do like about CUB, having to dip my feet into both outreach and communications. So
Right.
I like
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate it, Karen. I mean, you have taken our Spanish language materials kind of from 0 to 60, and it's just and now I know that Jim is feeling the pressure to stay up on the English side of our comms work, because I think that's it. I think a lot of people are turning to online resources and to get that there in front of people. Again, meeting people where they're at. People are on their phones, like kind of absorbing that way. And I think you have, maybe because you're a little younger than us, but it's great to see. And I wish I was better at it.
Thank you, thank you. That's great to hear.
Yeah, and it is interesting how you talked about having a digital presence, making sure people have information that they can reach via their phones. We just talked about going to our website, citizensutilityboard.org, but also having in-person events. I mean, is it in this digital age? Is it still important to have these in-person events? To anybody?
I can go ahead and answer this. Um, yes, really important to still have in-person events. I've noticed sometimes when I'm doing like webinars online, people will have questions and I'll be like, okay, well, here's this fact sheet that can explain um everything about this, but people still stay kind of like, okay, like sometimes people just don't want to really open up, a fact sheet on their phone. Instead, they want someone to like walk them
Yeah.
through exactly what the content is or the topic. That way we can like physically point, like if you see here is like, for example, for the light heat fact sheet, here's the income table. So depending on how many people in your home and your qualifying income. So sometimes people just prefer to do that. Sometimes I feel like I might like to have that in my own like personal when I attend events. Also, a lot of people aren't really comfortable yet with technology. So it's always important to include those in our work as well.
Right. Right. Um, the Sarah, you had touched upon, the breadth of our work. Like it's not just we're holding events, talking to just average everyday electric and gas customers who just want to better understand their bills. And then at the same time, we'll have a meeting with Clara and we're talking about, a data center policy at the regional power grid operator. It really seems like these issues are no longer just state issues; they're regional and national issues, and we have to be working not only for good policy on the state, but also at the regional and national level. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, and so it means there's a lot of work to be done, but it's also, I think it's important because we want to be effective. And, there are a lot of things that we do that, we got to plug away at it. We're not sure how, whether we're going to get a certain bill across the finish line, but we have to try.
Yeah.
Um, and oftentimes actually we're impactful. And I think when we're working in some of these regional and national venues, a lot of times the players there aren't expecting to see state level consumer advocates with representing all of these regular folks show
Right.
up in those space. And then when we show up in that space, people listen because we actually are the ones who are in everyday deep contact with real people. And I think that's really fun. I think that's, the fact that we have all of our supporters behind us and we have folks of Illinois behind us, I think gives what we say a lot of weight. And on the other hand, it also is, I think, I love learning and I love helping people learn. I love connecting the dots for people. And I love when I talk to a consumer about what's happening at the state level, then they start asking questions like, well, so then why can't the state do this? Well, like this is federal jurisdiction. And people are like, and I just, it always ends my favorite conversations are the ones that end up kind of a civics lesson.
Yeah.
And about how kind of like some of these policies that seem really esoteric and highfalutin actually impact us day to day every month when we open our bills. And I think that's just really important. And so I think, again, having the flexibility and the nimbleness to kind of like tackle these issues at multiple levels is I think what kind of sets us apart, and I think what makes it so meaningful and so effective.
Now, I'm so glad you brought that up. It is so cool to show people their bills. Well, it's not always good news, but to say, you've heard about capacity costs, you've heard about data centers. Here's where this is impacting you, right here on your bill. That there's a power to that where we can show people, like you said, to connect the dots. So, I am curious, over your experience, Karen, you started September of 2023, I believe, at CUB. Sarah, you've been here for about 25 years. Do you have a good story from your time at CUB? What's one of the more powerful stories that you've encountered dealing with a consumer? Could be dealing with a policy issue, anything like that.
Who do you want to go first?
No.
You want to go here? And I have a few. You can go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, so amongst many, I always feel really happy to see consumers get relief when we give the information, like I said. But there was this one time where it really stayed with me because it became a little bit like emotional in a way. So, I was giving a speaking engagement, a home energy savings presentation where we give the general, understanding your bills, taking advantage of programs, and just lowering your energy usage. And there was this woman that, she understood the information, but at the end was still left a little bit like not satisfied, I would say, just because she felt like none of the programs that we talked about applied to her. So she was being a little bit negative, saying that she wishes she could qualify for LIHEAP or other types of programs. So I understood her frustration, so I stayed a little bit after the presentation to kind of explain a little bit more, and we figured out that she actually did qualify for LIHEAP since and she didn't know that the income guidelines change every year. So when she heard of that, I think she had the income guidelines from like years ago and she thought that was the same thing. She's like, "No, I don't qualify." So, we went through the steps together to determine that and she did. And she was so happy. So she left like being extremely happy. She was really relieved and she even teared up a little bit, which honestly made me a little bit as well. So I think that was one of my most like impactful moments that I still think about now.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome that she was there and she expressed, she expressed what she wanted and what she needed, and you were able to respond to that and work with her to straighten it out, you know?
Yeah, and I really did appreciate that she, spoke up and said, I do need a little bit more information. Like I'm still not 100% happy with what I received. So that way I was able to like see the problem and actually go in and give her more information. Sometimes people they kind of stay quiet, and I feel sad about that because I never know who might leave wanting a little bit more like one-on-one attention. But I'm glad she did speak up.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard because not everybody by temperament is the type of person who's going to really advocate for themselves,
Yeah.
But the best we can do is be open and create a space where people can do that, and then just try every way we can, whether it's online or through in-person events, or or through printed materials, to try to get in front of folks so that they know what's out there. Um, and it's yeah, your impactful story is kind of thematically similar to one that has always stuck with me, and that's from years ago, when the percentage of income payment plan was first rolled out for the state of Illinois. I remember when we were working on trying to get this passed, and the way that the percentage of income payment plan, or it's shortened as the PIP, works is like, instead of traditional low income home energy assistance where you get big chunk of money like on your bill if you're income qualified every year, the percentage of income payment plan kind of spreads that out so that you are paying just a percentage of your income towards your utility bills every month. And what that does is it takes people off of this really detrimental disconnect, reconnect cycle. Because a lot of people, that's if they're on traditional LIHEAP, you fall behind on your bills, you get disconnected, you get a LIHEAP payment, you get reconnected, and then this happens every year. And I remember we were doing a lot of community outreach, educating folks about the PIP when it got started, and it was a similar thing. I was somewhere in central Illinois with my former colleague Amy, and we were explaining this to a room full of seniors. And there was this moment when suddenly everyone in the room kind of understood what this meant. And one lady did start to cry because people don't want to fall behind on their bills. People don't want to be disconnected. I mean, a lot of folks, it's such a blow to your pride,
Right.
to be struggling and to face this, and you feel like folks can just feel like some kind of failure. And when this one woman like discovered what this meant, and that she wouldn't get like sucked into this cycle, this devastating and dangerous cycle, having your utilities shut off, was just such a weight off. And she got a little teary, and it was just kind of amazing to see, because I remember when before the law passed creating the PIP, I remember thinking, this is never going to happen. Like, come on, no way. This is a pipe dream. And 2 years later, it was a reality, and it was changing lives. And I was so wrong when I thought that this was never going to happen. And I'm glad I was.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a lot, it seems like there's a lot of giving up on people, these days. And that's one thing. I love working for a group that doesn't give up on people, like Karen, you're talking about the negativity, some people might have walked away like, oh, too negative, but you stuck with her until she got it. I have one story that deals with Amy, also a former CUB employee. I asked to sit in on a conversation she had with a consumer years and years ago. And I actually looked this gentleman up like within the last couple of years, and he passed a couple of years ago, but he was talking with Amy, and he had this thing that just was really upsetting him on his bill. And Amy explained it very clearly and helped him out on it. And there was this one point where he said, it's hard to talk about. It's so hard to talk about because he said, it's one of those moments when you're a journalist, you dream for these moments that I'm in the room watching this guy's drama. And he said, you mean that's all you're going to help me take care of this? And he started to cry. And it was just one of those moments where you really just see how important this work is, and how we have to do it right. So that was, anyway, but that was an amazing moment. And what impressed upon me was a lot about like what you said, Karen, about how the consumers are heroes. We're inspired by them, and they really depend on us to get it right. And that is really, that's what I remember. I remember that gentleman all the time. When I try to write a fact sheet, I think of him. How would I write this so that it's understandable, to everyone? So yeah, a lot of moments, a lot of great moments where you can be inspired and try to do some good. I'm wondering if you have, we're a little bit over 11. It's 10:30. Do you have anything more? Oh, there is one thing I want to say. We've not talked about alternative suppliers. Sarah, you talked about choices in the market, how you have overwhelming choices in the market, a lot of good choices because of good, strong energy policy. But Karen and Sarah, I imagine you've also experienced some people who've been victimized by some bad choices, namely alternative energy suppliers. Do you see a lot of that, Karen, now in your outreach work?
Yes, unfortunately, all the time. Anywhere from doing workshops or doing the bill analysis one-on-one, there's always people that don't even know that they have an alternative supplier on their bill and are overpaying until we take a look at it. So that's definitely a big issue that we're seeing. Some people don't even know that they're getting switched because they get baited into doing this type of switch. They get told that it's some type of like program or discount, or that they'll be just saving by switching. So sometimes simply they don't even tell them any of this and they just get switched. So we always try our best in outreach to, and the type of work that we put online and on social media as well, to kind of make the really important decision and weigh the consequences when it comes to alternative suppliers. It's most likely your best bet to stay with ComEd, Ameren, or your gas utility, because unfortunately in outreach we do see a lot of high bills, overpaying. I believe like 2 months ago or a month ago, I saw someone overpaying by about $60 per bill with another supplier. So it's horrible when we get to see this. So that's why we try to make sure people are informed.
Yeah. Yeah. So we reported this year that now over the last decade, Illinois consumers who are with alternative electricity suppliers have now lost a total of more than $2 billion to alternative electricity suppliers. And the worst case was there was a person paying, even with gas prices are elevated right now from the utility supply prices. For the electric utility supply prices are elevated. But even Ameren's was like the highest I've ever seen it at over 12 cents per kilowatt hour. We still found a consumer who was paying triple that with an alternative supplier. So Sarah, based on your experience in outreach and hearing stories like this from Karen and other people, other sad stories, how does that shape what we're doing on a policy level?
Oh man, well, Jim, we just had a legislative call right before this, right? And so we're coming back in spring session in Springfield to try to do more to bring these out of control suppliers under control. It's madness that it's still, after all of these years, a problem afflicting residential consumers. And so there have been some policies put in place to help tackle the problem, but the problem is still there. Maybe not as bad as it once was, but as Karen said, we're still seeing it all the time. And so we're just talking to Brian, our guy in Springfield, about introducing legislation again to bring these under control. Try to, we're thinking about maybe getting rid of door-to-door sales for that kind of stuff. If they want to renew your arrangement with them at a rate that's higher than what it was, requiring a wet signature, things like that are just common sense.
Right.
We've been running into barriers trying to get this across the finish line in Springfield. So we're coming back, and meanwhile we will continue to do what we can to educate folks, to advocate for themselves and make sure that they don't get stuck in one of these deals. But if you do, we'll help you pinpoint the problem and see what we can do to get you out, and maybe get, if everything works out, maybe we get some refunds for folks too.
That's right. I mean, it seems like a lot of times fighting for good policy is a lot about starting the conversation, making sure people are hearing what are those common sense reforms. It may take a few years, it may take many years, but it's important to start that conversation. And I think that's what we're doing. So, just curious, do you have any messages you want to give Illinois consumers before we close here?
Thank you for your support. Thank you for caring about these issues. We are here, whether you know about us or not. We are here working for you, and question your bills.
Great. Karen, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, like Sarah said, thank you to everyone who has been supporting our work here at CUB. Also, if you know someone that may benefit from our information, share our page, our content. You never know someone who might be in need of the information that we give out. But again, thank you.
I triple that. Thank you. I appreciate that, both of you, for being here today. Again, CUB, we get no state funding. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan consumer group, and our mission is to help people lower their utility bills. We do that in Springfield by fighting for good legislation. We fight for good policy at the power grid level, and we're spending time all day answering a consumer hotline. And Karen and the rest of the outreach team are holding hundreds of events across the state of Illinois just to help people connect those dots and better understand their utility bills. I'd get in big trouble with Sandra if I promised that everybody who went to a CUB event and everyone who called CUB would get hundreds of dollars off their utility bills. But I have seen these teams save people hundreds, even thousands of dollars on their utility bills. But at the very least, you're going to learn more about your utility bills, and that's half the battle, is just being able to get educated about how the utility system works. Can be very confusing. So again, thank you for all your support on Giving Tuesday. You can go to our chat and give a donation to CUB, or you can go to citizensutilityboard.org. All our services are free to Illinois consumers, but it can be very expensive to launch these campaigns and to educate people across the state. So if you have some money to spare, please consider giving a donation to CUB. You'll join for 2026 if you give a donation today on Giving Tuesday. But also you'll enter a giveaway. You could win an iPad, and that's if you give before midnight. So again, thank you, everybody. And Sarah and Karen, thank you so much for your work at CUB. And thank you for being mentors to me and to try to be a better consumer advocate. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks all.